Okay, we online. Let me see. It's Twitch showing that we're online. Well, looks like it. So, welcome to everybody listening to this stream on YouTube after the fact. Um, I am streaming on Twitch basically for the purpose of establishing what they call affiliate status so that I can upload videos onto Twitch as like another backup of where I'm putting the videos. They don't let you do that right off the bat. You have to like stream for a certain number of hours and have a certain number of followers and stuff like that. So anyway, that's why I'm doing this, and I'm just waiting for people to show up in the live chat. And this is the third stream that I've done, and we just kind of chat. You know, I take questions from the audience, and we just talk about stuff. That's pretty much it. There's no real agenda to these. I tend to focus more on particular topics in the videos that I produce, but streaming we just kind of chat. And a lot of people have said that they they wanted to catch the first two, but they didn't know that they were going to be happening. You and me both. I've just been kind of picking times that are convenient for me to get online. However, I have set a schedule now. If you go to the schedule tab on Twitch, which is twitch.tv/socialism S4A, basically 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern on Tuesday and Saturdays for, I don't know, probably an hour and a half or maybe 2 hours. That's what I've kind of got set. So I think I can do that. That'll help to reach the affiliate status, and maybe there's like another status above affiliate on Twitch, partner. So maybe we can hit them both, and then get some more Marxist theory onto Twitch. So we got 3 people viewing, and I see Dan in the chat saying hi Dan, and Adobe Cult replies with an icon of Lenin's face. Didn't know that they had those on here. Is that like a built-in thing, or did you upload that? I really know nothing about Twitch whatsoever. Got 5 people viewing, so that's cool. I mean, literally, if we sat here in silence for an hour, just the 5 people, like that alone, I think I have to have an average of 3 people watching the stream, and I've got to be on, I think it's 8 times, something like that, for a total of 8 hours, I think. Anyway, whatever it is, we're well on the way. So, A. Tyler B says howdy, hello. Comrade Charmander says hey S4A, hello. Tanky Hoosier also says hi. Unelectable Airwaves, what's up? I'm here, but I'm driving, so I probably can't chat much. Well, that's cool. Or if your phone has it, put it on the voice settings so you can, just like dictate a question. Adobe Cult says the Lenin icon is from Rob Rousseau's channel. Each channel can make their own emojis that you get if you subscribe. Interesting. Okay. So Airwaves replies with a couple more. Oh yeah, there's Ho Chi Minh, and it's tiny. I can't see who that is. And then yeah, many Marxist revolutionary figures there, so that's cool. Do I have an audiobook of Foundations of Leninism? I believe I do. Let me check, actually. I'm going to mute the mic while I type, but I believe so. Sorry, my tab is taking a minute to load here. I've been using Firefox, and it used to crash all the time. I guess in one of the recent upgrades, they made it so that if your tab is not like active, it sort of deloads, which is great. It doesn't crash anymore, but also you have to wait for it to reload every time. All right, let me type. Okay, yes, I do have. Oh yeah. I just did this a month ago. I was thinking of another one. Yeah, I'll paste it in the chat here. There's the link to Foundations of Leninism, and I was just going to say something. Oh yeah. So people had tried to post links in the chat previously, and I guess I had that setting turned off. You can do it now. So everybody knows if you're trying to link to a video, you can. We've got 7 people. What's going on? So, yeah, no agenda here today. Just whatever's on people's minds, trying to rack up the number of streams and hours for Twitch affiliate. Comrade Charmander says, I just listened to the Red Menace episode on Foundations of Leninism and was like, holy shit, I need to see if S4A has done this. Yeah, it's a nice breakdown. I like that video a lot. I think Stalin, somebody compared Stalin's writings to if when you have like a young child, older than like a baby, but you take adult food and sort of puree it so that the very young child can eat it. Somebody compared, Stalin as kind of being the like pureed, like mashed and strained version of Marx and Engels, and that's a decent comparison. I mean, he really breaks it down. And I like that one a lot, The Foundations of Leninism. You can cover a lot of ground in it in a very understandable way. In fact, my only criticism of Stalin's writing at all is that sometimes it gets oversimplified to the point that I feel is repetitive. It's not pervasive throughout the text. I'll know that I'm reading Stalin when I find myself like repeating the same phrase over and over again. That said, I mean, he does drive the point home, so I really can't complain too much. Yeah. Adobe Cult says, if I ever need help with graphics in the streams, let me know. I don't know anything about the in-camera stuff that cam streamers use, but I can make you a cool banner. Well, thank you. Yeah, graphic design is not my passion, but, I dabble, I guess, and... for me, keeping it simple kind of works for now. But if we ever try to get more advanced, I will keep that in mind. And I don't know anything about the in-camera stuff that streamers use either. Partly because I have absolutely no aspirations to become a regular streamer. Excuse me. My allergies have been going crazy today. I've been like itchy all day. Don't really know why, but my throat just sort of seized up on me. Yeah, I honestly, I find it bizarre that people just film themselves in their bedroom in an expensive chair, and this is what passes for entertainment now. But it's the world we live in, I guess. Like, it's just really strange to me that people, like, I don't know, people used to talk on the phone or, like, actually hang out with each other. I don't know if we're moving away from that as a culture, but... Comrade Charmander says, did I see that Bloomberg accidentally published an article saying Russia invaded Ukraine? Put accidentally in quotes there. The media seems as ready for conflict as the CIA. Well, I think your main mistake there, and I say this tongue-in-cheek as far as a mistake, is that the media is the fucking CIA, so there's not really a difference. If you look at who's on the boards of all these things, it's like, the ruling class, like, it'll be, the same person will be on the board of half a dozen different things, and there's tons of overlap, and people's family members, ruling class family members will be on the boards of other things, and they kind of just, it's all just mouthpieces for the same basic consensus. So, no, I did not see that. However, I did see that, the U.S., like, a couple weeks ago was... I say a couple weeks. It was like, I don't think last week, but like the end of the previous week, so maybe a week and a half ago. They were telling people to like basically low-key evacuate out of Ukraine, and I saw that the UK was basically saying the same thing. Like the UK, it was like Friday or Saturday, I want to say, made a statement to the effect of like, don't expect the military to evacuate UK citizens out of Ukraine. That sounds pretty serious to me. And no, so I'm expecting it. And I have that little clip up that I got off of Twitter of Biden like, we were never going to unite Ukraine. I mean Iraq. Oh, I mean Afghanistan. It's all the same to them. So if you want to know what would happen to Ukraine if the U.S. and NATO started a war there, just look at Iraq or Afghanistan. That's reducing it to basically chaos with some green zones for rich people to live a more orderly life, with some predictability. That's pretty much what imperialism does. That's the MO of the war on terror era. So, yeah, I mean, they seem to be foaming at the mouth for it. It's Biden's approval rating isn't that low. Um, the folly of trying to start a war with Russia, which I think is kind of a proxy for China, as Russia is in an alliance with China on some major infrastructure issues. Um, it's just insane. You like the U.S. couldn't handle Afghanistan, but somehow it's going to take on Russia. That seems like utter folly, and I don't even know. This is the point where uh, it just doesn't. There's nothing in me as a human being. Like, I can read analysis of it and kind of understand it that way. There's just nothing in me that appeals to. There's no sense to it at all. Barlos Santana, or I'm assuming that that's pronounced Barlos Santana. Shantana, I'm not sure. It has an X. Glad I caught the stream. What's up, comrades? We're just getting started. That's what's up. I think streaming for about 11 minutes now. Adobe Cult says, who would I say is my favorite revolutionary writer, just as far as reading aloud or general comprehension goes? Marx in particular is so tough to get through sometimes. Yeah, I find Marx and Engels both can have pretty unwieldy sentence structure. I mean, when I write, I tend to have like pretty long sentences too. But just as far as reading out loud, the one that comes to mind is Eugene Debs. I like really get into those. I start not quite full on, but like some part of me starts imagining myself, in one of those like old timey like striped suits with like the vertical pinstripes and like standing on like a literal soapbox. Yeah, I just get into those. So I'd probably say off the top of my head Debs, although there are other writers I have liked a lot. Let me click over to the page and glance through, see if anything kind of leaps out at me. Like, I like Lenin. I like his writings have a real kind of like sarcastic bitterness to them that is great. I like him. And as far as his ideas, he's definitely one of my favorites for ideas. As far as like the writing itself, I will often find him funny. I don't get into them quite as much usually. They just feel a little drier to read. Though again, I like them, and I've probably done more of Lenin than any other writer. Let's see. I'm looking through here. So I did a bunch of Castro, and Castro was known in some places for like kind of going on TV and making long speeches. That was kind of what I had first heard about Castro, and kind of he was definitely a big orator in terms of he would just go and go on the speeches. It seemed to be just sort of, he had the gift of gab. And I think that I like his speeches too, but you do have to kind of keep in mind, like, once Castro starts talking, it's you're probably going to be there for a while. Let's see, who else? Walter. Okay, if I can speak. I tried to say Walter and Rodney at the same time, and it came out like Waltner. Walter Rodney, I liked his writing a lot. Thomas Sankara, also, I liked a lot. And it's hard to say with all these because many of them were not written in English originally, so it's kind of down to who was translating it in some cases. I imagine that there is some carryover of the original style, but that... yeah. So anyway, I'll probably leave it there for now, and we can, I'll save some writers to discuss at other times. But those are some of my thoughts. But yeah, I mean, as far as the comprehension of Marx and Engels, I think that once you get into it, there is a certain flow, but it may be a departure from, your normal speaking tone or just other things. I mean, you're not going to hear that many hithertos in common parlance in 2022. So there are some shifts, but once you get into it. But yeah, I'd say off the top of my head, probably Eugene Debs. Hello People 96 says, I support them truckers, they're real working class. Well, I don't know if that's meant to be ironic, but I've done several videos on the Canadian, quote, freedom convoy, and we don't. I mean, yeah, I support actual truckers, but that movement seems to be much more representative of the populist far right and the big bourgeoisie than it does actual working class truck driving concerns, which would be things like wage pressures, unrealistic delivery schedules that rush the truckers, and there will be stimulant abuse to like stay awake all night to make your delivery on time, and surveillance, and those are actual working class demands, having job security, right to unionize, things like that. The vaccines and all that stuff, that's not, those aren't by and large like the concerns of the working class, but of the far right and big bourgeoisie who don't want any restrictions on commerce. So anyway, bringing you up to speed there. Comrade Charmander, I find Lenin and Stalin both 10 times easier and more fun to read than Marx. Well, I'll say this. I think Marx was actually hilarious in his own right. He'll make many sort of extended metaphors to do satires on various subjects. And I mean, I think that Lenin probably, obviously Lenin had his own personality as well, but I think some of his writings kind of aspire to that and sort of borrow from Marx's, in particular Marx's often biting satire. So I think Marx is funny once you sort of learn his style. I was going to say learn to read Marx, but I mean that in the sense of once you learn Marx's flow and sort of speak his language, I think Marx is actually hilarious and brilliant. Marx's writings, to me, are like some of the most brilliant of the whole batch. Not that other people's ideas aren't good. There is just something that sparkles to me about Marx's writing, although, yeah, it is, it's the to be fair meme. You must have a very high IQ. No, not really. But I mean, Marx was an incredible genius, and it comes through in the writing. Now, that said, being an incredible genius is not just about writing at a level that very few people can read, not to say that at all. And part of good communication is writing in a way that really anybody can understand it. That is also important, although a lot of Marx's writing was not necessarily intended directly for the masses, but like other people who are kind of more on his level. Also, though, I mean, read anything from the 19th century. The style of writing that people used back then often was just a lot more elaborate. So it's not even just, Marx. Barlow says, Engels is a lot easier on the eyes and brain to me personally. I think it's a little more straightforward. That's not to say dull, because we're literally just comparing it to Marx. But yeah, it probably is a little more straightforward, Engels' writing. Tanky Hoosier says, anyone know why people on TikTok are calling themselves communists but don't read any theory and shit on Marxist-Leninist or Marxist-Leninist Maoist crowd? Is it COINTELPRO 2.0 to muddy the waters? Whatever it is, it's annoying. I don't think... So first of all, I'm not somebody who says that, conspiracies don't exist and whatever. But at the same time, in this particular case, we don't need to ascribe necessarily to COINTELPRO Westerners not reading theory. I mean, there's plenty of people who need no goading whatsoever not to read theory. In fact, what we do at S4A is really try to make it a lot more accessible. And, hopefully after people listen to 2 or 3 of the audiobooks with commentary, in the historical context so that they know what they're listening to, what I'm trying to do is sell the people on the value of that. For somebody who's never read theory and just thinks that it's going to be like opening a calculus text, I'd like to actually sell people on this is living stuff that's actually going to make you more radical in your politics, not, you're not going to have the urge to run out and buy like a tweed jacket and start, becoming completely aloof from real life. Literally just the opposite. Marxist theory is scientific. It's based on history. It involves social experiments. And how else do you think you're going to learn about these things other than reading the history and theory again, based on the history of socialists who've come before you? So as far as what's going on TikTok, I don't know because I haven't been watching TikTok. So I can't really comment on that. However, I did just start it here. I'll put the link right now. I am on TikTok. I think it's just as Socialism for All. Let me see here. Yeah, it's just at Socialism for All. So I'll put the link here if anybody wants to subscribe. I haven't put any content up yet, but it is coming. Did that make it? Yeah, it did. So yeah, if you want to go, subscribe. I don't know. Like I said, I have not fought any TikTok battles yet. But yeah, if you see people calling themselves communists but don't read any theory and shit on communists, then certainly politely engage them on that for sure. Okay, so first of all, okay, now we're moving on to the next comment. Hello People 96 says, I support them truckers. They're real working class. Well, I'll tell you, you're really selling me on how working class you are by the fact that you're writing in all caps, no punctuation, and saying, I support them truckers. Very, very believable. Thank you. And, okay, you want to say that you fraud socialists are only harming the movement of communists. I'll tell you what. Why don't you hit caps lock once, then tear the key off of your keyboard, then actually write out your comment in a way that involves some kind of evidence for the position you're trying to make, and don't be insulting when you do it. And you can either do that or you can get bounced out of the chat. So those are your options. All right. Goba Monkey says, I love the times when Marx wrote about barracks communism. Sergei Nechayev. What do you love about it? Also, Gobi says, I enjoyed Lenin and Luxemburg's back and forth. Yeah, excuse me. So I am finishing chapter 5 out of 5 of Rosa Luxemburg's The National Question. And then I'm doing a bunch of readings on nationalism, nationality, the national question, etc. this week. It's going to be more of an audiobooks week than a current events week. We haven't gotten into the Lenin versus Luxemburg thing yet, but I probably will do that soon. Charmander says, I think you got your first Twitch troll, S4A. Yeah, well, everybody knows my policy on comments is we try to keep things constructive, positive, and moving in a forwardly direction. So, that's not a thing we're going to spend a huge amount of time indulging here. Adobe Cult, so responding to Hello People 96, the pro-convoy commenter, was it the protesters or counter-protesters who were waving hammer and sickle flags? And which side was waving Nazi flags? Yeah. That would be, I think, a key question for understanding the dynamics of any protest. Charmander says, would I vote for Bernie versus Trump if he won the 2020 primary? Yeah, absolutely. Unfortunately, hold on, I just got to take a sip of my drink here. Unfortunately, the problem with Bernie is he rolled over for a bourgeois party that he fed a lot of momentum into. You can see the early videos on S4 on the channel on YouTube, S4A. I was very supportive of the Bernie movement because I was seeing it was drawing people into being politically minded and giving people the minimum amount of hope necessary for them to kind of stand up and be bold enough to make a demand, to demand something. A lot of people are just so beaten down that they don't even bother to articulate the kind of demands that would benefit, most working people. So what I saw from the Bernie thing was that while obviously there were flaws, I think as a starting point for rebuilding a U.S. left, which is badly defeated, and has been kind of in the gutter for decades. I saw it as a decent starting point for doing some of that, and getting that movement flowing, and then trying to work within the left wing of that current. I saw all that as happening, and I saw people being drawn out of that movement into reading Marx and Lenin and actually learning theory and becoming an actual Marxist rather than, kind of this vague SOCDEM thing. So to me, I saw that working. I saw it actually making some progress. So would I have voted for Bernie? Yeah. I mean, probably it wouldn't have resulted in um, most of the things coming to pass that he had wanted to do. However, that's useful for propaganda purposes as well. But this gets complicated because he was running for the Democratic Party nomination, and anyway, I mean, I've addressed a lot of this stuff to death. Like a little tired right now, so I don't feel like I can go through all the paces of like every piece of that discussion. Bottom line is, yeah, I probably would have. U.S. politics are so fucked anyway. I don't even know, like, if you vote PSL or you vote Green, I mean, you're gonna get 1% of the vote. So at this point, I don't even know that that's good propaganda. It's just U.S. electoral politics are so fucked. So yeah, I mean, I probably would have. I don't think that another 4 years of Trump would have been great. And the thing about Bernie, though, is like you look at him now, where even is he? It's been like total silence. The last thing I saw, he was trying to lobby for like, an N95 mask mandate and N95 masks for people. I mean, it's been crickets. And he said that he was going to have this 100-day plan to hold Biden accountable. I mean, was it all just bullshit? Was the entire run just bullshit? Like I said, the run itself, Bernie would go to some city and fill a stadium on multiple nights. That's not real. I'm sorry, that's not fake. I mean, that's a real effect. It's not real in terms of achieving political power, but that's not fake. Like, that's a real thing. People actually got out and listened and got excited about the possibility of fighting for a working class set of demands. I mean, you could say that the Bernie reform program was comparable to, but probably the weakest of, like, if you laid out PSL's initial, what they run on for president, and what the Greens did, like Howie Hawkins, what he ran on. Bernie's is similar, it's slightly weaker, but, it's the starting point that basically any socialist would do to sort of put the system on trial. How much of this can you actually achieve under capitalism, and how much requires moving beyond capitalism to do. But yeah, who even knows? Bernie has really, really, really just gone into the shadows, it seems like. Okay, so hello people. You need to just stop, really? Okay, thanks. What else we got? Where was I? Hold on, there's a fire truck going by, and I'm going to mute my mic for a second. All right, we're back. So Siparuski says, by the way, I saw your COVID coverage on YouTube. It was very well made, S4A. Thank you. Oh, God, more trucks. Hang on. All right, we're back. So actually, I saw an earlier comment from Siparuski. I don't think mandates should get that much coverage. I see them as a distraction, even used to blame the individual and not the systemic response. Also, all socialist countries didn't have mandates. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot going on with COVID. Like, so for example, capitalist-run hospitals, they try to cut down the number of beds that they have because it's not profitable to have empty beds. That's an issue. There's a lot going on there. However, when it comes to the protests in Canada, there is so much far right nonsense going on. I mean, again, I did 2 videos amounting to about 2.5 or 3 hours of coverage on it. There's really very little of quality going on there, and yeah, the mandates. It's I don't know what to say. I mean, I got vaccinated. Nobody needed to mandate me to do that, and I don't think that most of the arguments against getting the vaccine are really very good. But yeah, I mean, you have a country like China that actually does shutdowns when there's an outbreak. Then you don't need to do a vaccine mandate. However, if people think vaccine mandates are authoritarian, they would really hate, the shutdown. So, like, either way, the right wingers are not correct on that issue. Basically, they're just COVID deniers. They don't want to do anything really to deal with it. They're just like, oh, live with it. Everybody's going to get COVID 18 times. It's fine. That's what they say, and they're completely wrong. So, you can't use, what the Freedom Convoy is saying as like the starting point for anything. It's totally disingenuous for the most part. I mean, the source of it is disingenuous. They may have pulled some well-meaning, authentic people into it who might have some concerns, but the basic starting point is deeply flawed. But anyway, thank you for the compliment on the COVID coverage. I think it's an important issue I think that it should have more agitational power than it does. Too many people have just bought into the not caring about COVID. I think that that's a real problem. So Charmander says, should we be trying to make use of the Greens' political infrastructure and pull them left, like them having ballot access, for example? So to be honest, am I can't even find the word. Frustrated doesn't do it. Infuriated maybe is a little bit excessive, but somewhere between frustrated and infuriated with everyone in the United States who considers themselves a left, but doesn't bother to lift a finger to try to do anything in terms of working with the Green Party, volunteering for them, becoming a member, voting for them. If all the people who had opinions about the Green Party actually tried to do something, because unlike the Democratic Party or something like that, you actually can get involved with the Green Party and directly influence them, because that's what it's set up to do. If people just did that rather than making their impotent criticisms on the sidelines, it would be a large, probably influential party, and then we could have a different discussion about, is it achieving what we need or whatever. Probably if the Greens had a bigger presence, they would, in some cases, wind up working with the Democratic Party, because they probably wouldn't be a majority, and things like that happen in parliamentary type systems. But they'd also be able to do some initiatives that would never get introduced otherwise. And we were talking about Bernie Sanders. One of the virtues of having somebody like a Bernie Sanders running is when he was running, the news shows were obliged to cover him. And so he had a foot in the door for getting on cable news and talking about Medicare for All. Literally, from one day after he dropped out of the race, Medicare for All has not been mentioned on the news since. So, there is value in having people running campaigns, even if they don't win, running high-profile campaigns for office, because you're able to affect the discourse in the country. You're able to put things onto people's radars, and you can affect morale. You can affect people's, readiness to make demands for things, and you can agitate and educate that way. So, should we be trying to make use of the Greens' political infrastructure? Yeah, should have been doing that already, honestly. It's frankly inexcusable that people haven't been. And as far as pulling them left, you don't even need to pull them that far left. Look at what Howie Hawkins was. He was the presidential candidate. Look at what his platform was. He was doing really significant moves to introduce more of an actually socialist kind of platform into the Greens. So, a lot of the work has been done by, let's just take a moment to, thank and recognize the people who are actually out there in the Green Party, at least in the left wing of it, taking the slings and arrows and just all the bullshit that people dump on the Green Party to actually do what they've been able to do. And if people would stop fucking criticizing and just having opinions and get involved. But see, this is US Americans though, not being joiners and whatnot. You just want to sit back and complain. So I mean, I could go on about this for a while. But yeah, if everybody who considered themselves left just actually fucking got out there and did something, particularly like the easiest thing, join the Green Party, or even register as a Green. Registering as a Green in your state can get them ballot access that much more easily. So, I mean, and then had this been going for several decades, we could then apply the same model to a similar Marxist party, but people haven't been out there gaining the experience, haven't been learning the lessons. And sorry, but that's on everybody who hasn't been doing that, because sitting around and being snarky doesn't fucking get you anywhere. So the answer is yes, yes, and more yes, and you don't even need to pull them that far left, to be honest. So yeah, they have a right wing that's more populist, more contrarian, more hippie capitalist, whatever. You could easily drown those people out. And, like, for example, the Green Party and the Libertarian Party, in some places where the Green Party is not principled, will wind up working together. That's insanely stupid. The Libertarians are crypto-fascists who want hyper-capitalism. But to be honest, I mean, the Greens that have decent heads on their shoulders know that. But yeah, no, get involved, for fuck's sake. People look for any excuse not to do anything, and then what's the result? Years just tick by and nothing fucking happens. So that's my take on that. And I'm feeling fairly calm right now, so I could go on a lot more about that. Siparuski says, the virus still spreads if you get vaccinated. The China zero COVID approach is the only one that works. Well, yes and no. It does still spread if you get vaccinated, although you are somewhat less contagious from day 6 or 7 onward, because if you're vaccinated, your immune system will attack the virus more quickly and your viral load will be lower, particularly in the 2nd and 3rd weeks. However, you are correct, the first week it is fairly comparable. Therefore, masks are more effective. The point is, though, doing absolutely nothing, it's not like you need to have an all or nothing approach. Okay, it's not like doing 1 or 2 mitigation measures is utterly pointless unless you do the whole basket of 10. No, I mean, they all help. So I mean, people should do whatever they can. So yeah. Adobe Cult says electoralism in and of itself doesn't pull anyone left. Lenin's view was that by participating in bourgeois elections as a communist, one would have a platform to concretely show how the ruling class will thwart working class power by any means possible, and that ultimately the solution is revolution, not reform. Yeah, so of course you cannot just run a campaign on issues that nobody is seeing a need for. Like, if material conditions aren't such that people are desiring, reform of the housing situation or the medical situation or whatever it is, then your campaign isn't going to be that popular. The fact in the United States right now, though, and this is, speaks to the popularity of Bernie Sanders. It certainly wasn't, his just sheer charisma as an orator. He went out there and articulated the same demands that had been posed through Occupy, except he did so running for the presidential nomination in the Democratic Party. The demands were already popular and needed, again, as evidenced by the fact that groups like PSL and the Greens had already had these demands for a while. They're totally needed. So it's not the election campaign that pulls people left. What I'm saying is that people tend to get beaten down by all the bourgeois propaganda around them. And so they adopt a bourgeois ideology even though it doesn't serve them as proletarians. However, when somebody stands up and says loudly, hey, come join this movement, we're demanding this, then people go, oh my God, you're willing to actually stand up and ask for that? And look at how many people got involved. Bernie filled stadiums. So it's not the campaign that's making people want the things. They already wanted them. It's the campaign that made people feel inclined to stand up for them. And then the whole question beyond that about, can the system deliver? I mean, that's part two. So yeah. Big Red Boy 1234. Do I think of a I'm not able to read this question. Do I think of a left-wing officers or carnation revolution in America as even a remote possibility? I think that the police in the United States, if this is what we're talking about, are extremely right-wing right now. So, I mean, the United States police force, let me just look something up. So the United States police force is the third largest military in the world. So what can you do with that? I mean, ultimately, any kind of revolution needs eventually to win over significant portions of the police and military. I think it's going to be a long struggle for that. So as far as even being a remote possibility, I mean, I think we got a long struggle ahead of us. You got to demilitarize the police, all kinds of things there. I mean, that's one of the things about the U.S. being at war for as long as it has. It's taking all the surplus military stuff and just giving it to the cops. So bad situation. Their whole thing right now is just put down any uprising, put down any uprising, put down any uprising. That's their entire strategy. So, yeah. Gobi Monkey, you must live near a firehouse. I know what that's like. Used to drive me crazy. Yeah, there's a lot of road noise. And believe me, when I'm trying to record, it results in a lot of frustration. Big Red Boy 1234. Mandates are being lifted in Canada so they can go back to calling for the RMCP to mow down indigenous protesters and refugees now. So, yeah. I don't even know what to say. I think as far as the whole trucker convoy thing, my take on it is kind of the bourgeoisie was already lifting mandates, so it's as far as having these fierce protests, it seemed to me to be more of a PR stunt for the Populist Party, which is newly formed, out of the Conservative Party, which wasn't conservative enough for the new populists, who are basically just the far right kind of neo-Nazi types. It was a commercial for them, and it also serves as if any workers were, might have felt inclined to go and stand up for reintroducing or not taking down COVID protections. Well, then you got to contend with this, lot of crazies. So, Comradelib says mandates should be implemented in countries where the population has been propagandized against it, make it impossible to regain normal life unless you're vaccinated. I mean, we know that there are a lot of benefits of vaccination, and that the U.S. is trailing, for example, the Netherlands by about 20 percentage points in terms of who has been vaccinated and who's gotten a booster and stuff. And you can see dramatic differences in the death rate and etc. I think that the bottom line right now is U.S. healthcare is an afterthought. It should have been reformed into Medicare for All decades ago, and it's just a huge, it's just a profit venture. They don't actually care if people get sick. So I don't know. As far as, making it impossible to regain normal life unless you're vaccinated, we're in capitalism, and a particularly reactionary breed of capitalism. So, I mean, I don't know who's going to be making it impossible to regain, who is going to be enacting that right now? I think that if we had the power, as socialists, if we had the power to do something like that, we'd have the power to make so many other changes that I think we could have another conversation about if, doing all these other things, do you still need the mandate at that point? But again, I find it very strange that they're doing, a vaccine mandate without doing a mask mandate. That to me makes absolutely no sense. And, we'll leave it there for now. Siporowski says, at the same time, that kind of mandate thing creates division and tension. The problem was that there was already very little trust in institutions in the West. And Siporowski adds, I don't really know how the West will get out of the situation. It is disastrous. The active cases were low after lockdown in the West were low. That was the time to isolate as much as possible and keeping masks on. Yeah, to me, like when Biden, when they did the whole masks off in May 2021 thing, I did a video about it. I think the first word of the title was just astonishing because I really don't know what else to call it. I did a video called Fire Jeff Zients. That's Biden's COVID czar. He's a guy from Bain Capital with no public health or medical experience, and he's running the COVID response, and it's fucking disastrous and insane. So that's why we're getting these things like no mask mandate, and the CDC director is so fucking spineless. She's going along with all of it, and not just her, the entire public health and medical communities are going along with it for the most part. I see a few like rogue MDs and MPHs on Twitter going against it. They're like voices in the wilderness. I mean, it's not a good situation. So I think that the entire medical establishment and everybody connected with public health and sort of population health going along with like somehow you can have some kind of a COVID response that doesn't involve masks is just like, I've said this before, hand in your fucking PhD in if I can speak, epidemiology. Just fucking hand it in and we'll burn it, because that's totally non-scientific, thinking that you can somehow get through a pandemic without masks. It's a joke. But, that's what somebody from Bain Capital might say. So there you go. That's who's running the U.S.'s pandemic response. All right. Comrade Charmander says, S4A on the Green Party subreddit, Howie Hawkins posted an invitation to them reading No Joke, State and Revolution. I really like the direction Howie took the party. Yeah, me too. Plus, people say he's non-charismatic or whatever. I mean, like Jill Stein was. I don't see a huge difference there. Let's put it that way. I think that Howie Hawkins got more attacks because he was more socialist. And until somebody can disprove that, I'm going to just keep saying that. Yeah, I mean, there is an actual socialist wing of the Green Party, for sure. I think that just demonstrates how much you can actually do in that party if you get off your ass and actually fucking do it. So Andros234 says, true. Unelectable Airwave says, I don't think the Green Party label is going to be a winner long term. I think that a clearly defined Labor Party or a Workers' Party would have more success. That's great. Why do you think that? I mean, there's really no reason why the Green Party shouldn't be successful. I mean, it's not successful short term. So, and there have been Labor parties and Workers' parties. Those are even less successful than the Green Party. So I guess, honestly, this is a huge pet peeve of mine, is people going, well, I think the Green Party could do this. Have you ever been involved with the Green Party? Do you even vote for them? If not, shut the fuck up. I just, the amount of people watching the United States just sink further and further into austerity without doing easy things to try to organize to push back against it drives me out of my fucking mind. So, anyway, that. Adobe Cult, does the Green Party have any more or less sway than, say, PSL or CPUSA? Well, the Green Party, their big moment was in the 2000 election with Ralph Nader. They got like 4% of the vote or thereabout. Actually, let me look that up because it's been a while. But they didn't reach the 5% that they were striving for. But it was, they got 5% in some states. Where are we? All right, 2000. God, I can't find it. Anyway, maybe somewhere around, hold on, truck. There we go. Yeah, that's fun. Not only is your truck insanely loud, but you're going to drive it at 5 miles an hour too. I can't find the thing. Maybe it was around 3%. It's definitely I think they've been overtaken by the Libertarian Party as the largest third quote unquote party. But yeah, so had that momentum continued and had people gotten involved rather than jumping ship to join the Democratic Party, who beat up Ralph Nader for running and then blamed the Greens for George W. Bush, which was the most counterfactual thing ever. I mean, they ran Al Gore, who had, if we're talking about charisma, zero charisma. I think didn't even win his own home state. He was a weak candidate. I mean, he was not a great vice president and just a weak candidate. So anyway, that was kind of a big moment. And I don't know. They've existed. People could get involved. And just a lot of people who I have met have preferred to just remain on the sidelines criticizing rather than actually trying to do anything. I think that these are people who fundamentally don't understand what democracy is about, that you actually have to get involved or somebody else will. And, I don't know. It's hugely frustrating for me. So do they have more or less sway now? I think that they still have more because unlike PSL and CPUSA, I mean, they're running candidates in most states. So I think it's much bigger than either of those groups. Someone correct me if I'm wrong on that, but I think it's much, much bigger. Yeah, Charmander says way, way, way more than PSL or CPUSA. I would agree. So anyway, Kuyu says hello, hello. Gobi says, my wife and I had COVID recently. We were lucky that it was quite mild. Yes, although the initial severity does not have any relationship with your odds of developing long COVID, so watch out for that in a few months. Siporowski, yes, USA has 28.3 million active cases and some European countries, more than 10% of their population. So the situation doesn't get better without mitigation. Thanks for the response. I got to go to sleep because I don't live in the USA. All right, well, good night, and we'll see you next time. Let's see. Airwaves. Bernie was the top fundraiser among active duty military. Comrade Lib says the military and the police are very different. Airwaves replies, isn't Carnation Revolution military? I agree that the cops are 100% counter-revolutionary. There might be some potential among military. I don't know. None of the people in the military I know are particularly free thinkers, so I don't really know. Adobe Cult, the trucker convoy also made it to where massive legitimate proletarian movements like the one in Puerto Rico got zero press coverage. I mean, to be fair, I don't know if that's directly caused by the Canadian thing. I mean, they'll run pretty much any story to avoid covering like a mass, something verging on like a general strike. I mean, the thing in Puerto Rico, that was like basically most of the public employees were striking, and they have a national general strike called for this week on the 18th. So, was that Friday? I mean, that's going to be something to look out for. Let's see. Airwave says, yeah, the trucker convoy seems like predominantly an organizing effort from far-right groups. Absolutely. Those are who the organizers of it were. Tanky Hoosier, any org recommendations for people living in rural areas where there's absolutely nothing? So I can't prove that you are wrong about that. I don't know where you are exactly, but there may be more than you think. Just get involved with something. You will meet people, and even if your org is small, it will, you may meet enough people to start another project and then pull more people into it. So, my basic organization recommendations, excuse me, I'm wearing headphones and it's pressing on my ear in a weird way and it's making me like choke up. Join the org that can solve the problems that your area is facing. Try to shoot for a healthy org where people get along with each other, an active org that is actually not just active on paper, and one with some actual ties to the community, working on problems faced by the community. So that is ideally what you want to look for in an organization. Getting involved with something that's purely online, I don't know that that's actually going to give you any real experience or do anything for you beyond what you can do from sort of comment sections anyway. Um, Look at, your state. I mean, does PSL have everybody knows what the standard organizations are. Go look up a list of left-wing organizations and just see if any of them are active in your area. Get in touch with them. I mean, even if you have to drive 2 hours to the monthly meeting, that might work for you somehow, and you might meet people and you can carpool and whatever. So just get out there and join. I mean, the only thing I'll say is that if the org doesn't seem good, if people are bitter, burned out, fighting with each other a lot, don't get involved, because honestly, getting involved with a bad organization can be one of the worst experiences of your life. So I'll say that. I'm sorry not to be more helpful. I'm really trying not to recommend specific organizations right now because, for example, like PSL looks pretty good to me in terms of most of the people that I meet from there. But then you hear stories about that they're like covering up sexual assaults, and I don't know if that's true or not. But I also don't feel like I can recommend organizations, and then, everything seems good, and then there's some big scandal that breaks. I just, when I don't really know firsthand what's going on somewhere, I don't feel like I can make those recommendations. So, but the good news is that you don't actually need me to make a recommendation. Just go out there, look around, and see what you can do. And then, report back to the community about your experiences. And that way we all will know what organizations to join. But I also think that the movement is growing, just in terms of numbers of people getting involved. And I think that some organizations may be small now and they won't be in 3 or 4 years. And then we'll have a kind of shuffling of the chairs as people reorganize, as the right wing of the organization breaks off and becomes this new org, and the left wing of 2 other organizations get together and form a new org. And, but people have to get out there and actually get involved for any of that stuff to happen. So anyway. Big Red Boy 1234. Yeah, it was more among the military, the Carnation Revolution. RMCP in my jumbled ass question. Sorry, I might be a bit dyslexic today. Sorry about that. It's okay. It's a Tuesday. I am too. I'm not at my sharpest right now either. It's all good. Airwave says Biden seems terrified of reactionary media criticism. Biden just seems terrified, period. I mean, he just doesn't go out a lot. This was true during the campaign as well. Biden is, the world's last bipartisan Democrat. He's a relic, and this is what they did to avoid Bernie Sanders. And again, it's not Bernie Sanders personally that they're scared of. It's the movement. They don't want to make any changes to the system. They don't want to make any concessions. And so they went with fucking Biden. Airwaves. I support the Greens now. I just think we can maybe do better from a branding, marketing point of view. Okay, great. So get involved with your party and tell them that. I mean, I literally just don't want to hear any more criticisms of the Green Party of that type. Like, if there's some larger discussion, believe me, it's not the fucking name that's the problem. Like, that would be my basic take. It's not the name that's the problem. So, Gobi Monkey, Bush ran on being a compassionate conservative. He sure did. And then started, like, a meta war involving the invasion of multiple countries. So, yeah. Let's see. Do I support abolishing the police? Everything that we can do under capitalism to make the state less able to attack us, we should do. So, demilitarizing, defunding, and defunding to the point of having almost as a non-presence. In many places, that would be an improvement. The police actually cause crime in many areas. If there are legitimate functions, I'm sure somebody has the statistics on that. By and large, the state of the police today, and this goes back to the last 20 years of Bush and Cheney and the war on terror, and when they started giving military equipment in huge amounts in the name of anti-terrorism during the war on terror. This is not like the way it always was. I mean, yeah, the U.S. police were always bad, and they were always overfunded. the level it's on now is ridiculous. So, I mean, even just returning police to like the 2000, or 1999 level would seem like radical reform at this point. It's because the U.S. is in basically fascist territory now. So, yeah, anyway, so that's my basic answer on that. You want to have any kind of successful people's movements, people have to be afraid, have to not be afraid to get in the streets for getting shot and everything. So, yeah, bringing police under community control, demilitarizing, defunding, they just don't need as much money as they're getting. Yeah, absolutely, all those things. So, yeah. Adobe Cult, the Bolsheviks started as a reading club. Even if you can just find a few people to touch grass, read theory, and help solve problems in your community with, it can have a giant impact. Yes, I support that. I support that. A lot of times people just wait for somebody else to come along and tell them what to do, and you just can't think like that. I mean, this is a pretty dire situation, and you just can't wait for other people to tell you what to do. If you want guidance, by all means, solicit guidance, but I mean, people have to be ready to solve their own problems. HorrorClick12, hi S4A, thoughts on the political prisoner movement and fighting to free political prisoners? Excellent question that does not get brought up enough, and partly as a function of it not being brought enough, I don't have a lot of fresh thoughts on it. What kind of political prisoners are you talking about? Are you talking about in the U.S.? I mean, the entire war on drugs, for example, was arguably just a movement to criminalize poor people, particularly people of color. So, and we've seen that play out. I mean, speaking of demilitarizing or abolishing the police, we have fucking for-profit prisons in this country. I mean, that's part of dismantling that entire apparatus. So, yeah. Anyway, so, thoughts on that? Yeah, absolutely. If you have specific suggestions, I would be interested in discussing and researching those further. I think, the other thought that off the top of my head is, I think that it seems to me like this was more of a thing in the past when, and by past I mean a few decades ago, for example, when the USSR was still around and funding more, insurgent movements, unlike China today, does not seem to be taking that approach. So you would get more kind of, revolutionary movements that might get caught or whatever, and then there would be political prisoners. But anyway, Charmander asks, would communism have a police force? I mean, if we're splitting hairs talking about, socialism, the quote lower stage, versus communism, the quote upper stage, I mean, the idea in communism, which has never been attained because imperialism still dominates the globe, is that once proletarianization is complete and, there's only one class, the working class, that the state would wither away and be less about governing people and more about administrating things, just kind of running the economy. But, I mean, as far as would immediately post-revolution socialism have a police force? Absolutely. How else are you going to suppress the bourgeoisie and just kind of keep control? When you have a socialist revolution, you're literally one day out from capitalism, and so the legacy of capitalism is still really strong. So things aren't different overnight versus capitalism. That said, in the first year or two of a socialist revolution, you can make quantum leaps in terms of worker rights and different programs you can establish and or dismantle, etc. But yeah, you absolutely still need police in socialism. It's anarchist wishful thinking to think otherwise. Not trying to accuse you of that, but a lot of people do get that in their head, and yeah. I mean, you need a workers' state, and states do require enforcement of, whatever the state's trying to do. So, let's see. Kuyu says, wish I had a car. That's how I think. All right. Tanky Hoosier says, I live in Indiana. I help run a food bank, but I rarely bring politics into it. My interest is to serve people like me, very broke. I wanted to join an org for political organization, theory, and a community of like minds. I agree I may have to build it. Yeah, I mean, and that's why I say kind of, go around to whatever is in your area. If there's a DSA, a PSL, a Green Party, whatever the larger organizations that are the most likely to have at least some members, maybe like an IWW. Trying to think of like what else is, commonly found places. I mean, you might find two members of this org and three from that one that want to do something else. I don't know. Just like I said, get in there, talk to people, see what you come up with. That's probably the best. That's the best I can do. Hang on a sec. I got to just take a minute or two break. I'll be right back. All right, we're back. So, Deathadelic says, when are you going to man up and debate Haas? Just fuck off. Seriously. Just, yeah, Adobe called ads gross, lol. Yeah, just fuck off. Seriously. Yeah, you want me to debate the guy that was like, we live in socialism now? No. Health Revolt says, quick thoughts on the term revolutionary LARPing. I often hear it, most in reference to communists. Um, Yeah, I mean, I think that this is I don't know that I have general thoughts on that. I mean, it's obviously a dismissive term that sometimes might be used accurately if somebody is, you know, really, I don't know, I'm not finding the words right now, but I mean, sometimes I guess it's accurate. Technically, that's a possibility. A lot of times people just dismiss anybody that has any revolutionary politics as kind of a joke or whatever. So yeah. So let's. I see a lot of comments pertaining to the whole debating. Let's just. This won't be addressed again in the stream. So no, I'm not big on debates in the first place. I think that they are not very educational, and they're mostly just dick measuring contests. And I don't think it's really of any relevance to anybody. So yeah, and I probably will just ban the guy. Although I don't feel like trying to click around in my Twitch settings, and probably I'd wind up like logging off by accident. So I can do that later. But yeah, revolutionary LARPing. I mean, a lot of people just don't believe in revolution. So people might be quick to use the term just because they're like, oh, what do you think, we're gonna have a revolution? And actually, let's talk about that for a second. We were talking about the Greens before and talking about people who see a need for change, and just bringing up the Greens as they've been on the ballot for decades and people just don't vote for it, even though, and I've talked to people who are proletarian and are just like, oh yeah, well, they're never going to win. I don't even know, like, if you're so easily defeated by Democratic Party propaganda like that, what's the point? I don't even know. Okay, I guess you just want nothing to ever change, because when you buy into Democratic Party logic like that, then you're basically entrusting the situation to the Democratic Party. You're going for their line. Okay, I guess you think that the Democratic Party is going to bring us the change that we need. I don't know what it's going to take at this point for people to realize that that's just not the case. So, what do we got? Yeah, see, now everybody's just talking about debates. So, somebody give another question that doesn't have anything to do with the troll. How about that? How does that sound? Come on. The last dozen comments we're about to troll. Somebody think up something else. All right. We thinking of like reconstituting the Green Party under a socialist line to remove the libertarians. Uh have you been involved with the Green Party ever before? And that's not rhetorical. I'm just asking you because I'm just trying to understand where the question is coming from. All right, I'm not seeing a response. In the interest of not having like 5 minutes of dead air, I'm going to move on. Charmander says thoughts on David Harvey. Um, I have some of his books. I haven't read enough of them. I had a project that I was going to be doing some reading from, and it got canceled. Um, no, I don't. I don't have strong thoughts on David Harvey right now. I know he's popular. He hasn't done the sort of Richard Wolff making himself a household name thing, but no strong. I have to read more of his stuff to have more of a comment. So Adobe called not personally. You don't have experience with the Green Party, just associated with some reactionary candidates from back in the day. What reactionary candidates? I'm just curious because obviously it's a party that does different things in different states. So I'm just curious. I mean, they do sometimes associate with the Libertarian Party where there isn't like principled left membership. Um, but yeah. So Tanky Hoosier says, didn't Dems sue to get Greens off of the ballots in states? I didn't see them on my Indiana ballot. Yes. So the Democratic Party, the party of democracy, absolutely does not want competition. This isn't just about the Green Party, specifically being a threat. It's the overall situation of politics in the U.S. So the Democrats will go on all day long about how the Republicans are far right and they don't believe in democracy and are increasingly fascist, and that's all correct. Okay, they're not wrong in pointing that out. The problem is that the Democratic Party could obliterate the Republican Party just by adopting some popular reforms. And they utterly refuse. They have been asked to do this many times, and they utterly refuse. If the Democrats were to adopt a Bernie Sanders style, set of reforms and start really campaigning uniformly in every state on that, they would drive the Republicans into completely out of national politics. They would become the Republicans a regional party with really no influence over U.S. national politics, thereby taking the U.S. off of the brink of fascism, which is where it's been for quite a long time. But they won't do it. Why? Because once the Republicans are gone, then the conflict shifts between the Democrats and the left. They don't want that. I mean, because they're controlled by the 1%, just like the Republicans are. The 1% wants, the center right and the right to be where the spotlight is, which means that you are running this, you're walking the line of having a fascist coup at some point. So that's where we are. So yeah, this Democratic Party, party of democracy, absolutely does not want to square off against Greens or PSL or, does CPUSA even run candidates? I don't know. They don't want to face the left or, whether it's a coalition of all these groups. They don't want to face them because they will lose to the left about as quickly as the Republicans will have lost to the Democrats at this point, were that left-Dem coalition to happen, which the Democrats keep refusing. So, yeah, they will absolutely try to suppress any left opposition wherever they can. Let's see. Gobi says, do the length of the videos and the amount of talking have to do... Wait, what am I reading here? Do the length of the videos and the amount of talking you have to do... Oh. So, all this talking I do, is it rough on my voice? Some days it doesn't really bother me, and some days it does. But like I said before, I kind of have allergies. So, like, right now I'm in a cold room, and it really has more to do with, like, just allergies, and I get kind of stuffy and have a runny nose, and that's rough around my throat. But no, I mean, I'll drink some hot beverages and things, and normally I do not really get a sore throat so much. Kuyu asks, how's the Black Shirt and Red's audiobook coming along? Good. It'll probably be up next week. Don't hold me to that, but it is coming along. Charmander says, I don't mean this to be satire or a joke. Why do some Maoists like Pol Pot? Is that worth entertaining? I don't know. I don't know why they like... Excuse me. Hold on, I gotta clear my throat. Okay. I don't know why some Maoists like Pol Pot. I mean, I think you could find some of any group that likes something. So I don't know. I don't see it come up a lot in real life, at least not my corner of real life. So to me, it's probably not worth entertaining. Good question, but I don't see a ton of it, so I haven't really been able to analyze it or form an opinion. So Eric J9, I think that we should stand against the police and military removing protesters in Canada. I think that the convoy is problematic, but I don't want to debate that nonsense now and start infighting. No, there is no debate. First of all, it's problematic, period. So you're correct on that. And start infighting. Just want to know if we should stand against the state's misuse of force, like tear gas against protesters, and labeling them as terrorists. I think it could set a dangerous precedent, but I'm also super uninformed on stuff like this. So first of all, perfectly fair opinion and qualifier. So that is not a new phenomenon. So again, I keep talking about the unprecedented changes that were made during, for example, the Bush-Cheney years. Calling protesters terrorists was one of the things that happened during that time. This isn't the way it always was, although the U.S. often would use violence against protesters. Specifically labeling random people as terrorists, that is a new style for them, at least. So yeah, I mean, this gets into the question of like, should we start going for the free speech of the right wing? I think that standing against the right wing, whether that is the imperialist state, I guess what I'm trying to say is let's keep it about what it is. It's about not letting right-wingers usurp left revolutionary energy, which they're going to use to build fascist movements. So I guess that you raised a lot of questions there about the legitimacy of police and the military deploying against right-wing protesters. No, I mean, not free speech for Nazis. At the same time, I don't know exactly what's going on in Canada. In fact, what I've seen there is that the police are very friendly towards the protesters. So if that has changed, I don't know. The bottom line is that they use a lot more force against left-wing protesters than they do any right-wing protesters. And in fact, I believe that this entire moment is heading towards, the eventual emergence of a full-on fascist dictatorship. I think is probably what's likely. But so anyway, hopefully, if you have a follow-up question based on that answer, go for it. That's a few thoughts that maybe just help reorient the question. Unelectable airwaves, yeah, both parties seem really happy to have these two polarized groups that each think the other is Satan. I mean, I don't even think that's the problem. The problem is that they're not fundamentally very different. You have both parties that are controlled opposition for the other. To me, that's more the problem. They both represent the 1%. So you have two parties that don't actually represent two different sets of interests. So that's, to me, more the problem than, like, polarization. Adobe Cult says, speaking as a zillennial or whatever, I got to say that most proletarians my age and younger are completely disillusioned with voting and the entire electoral system and would be far more receptive towards building dual power and adopting mass line tactics. Okay. Go for it. I mean, we happened to be discussing the question of electoral politics earlier. Obviously, any kind... this is another reason for when we talk about like Greens versus Democrats, for example, I mean, how this whole thing came up today in this stream was we were talking about Bernie Sanders and how Bernie Sanders funneled the stadiums full of people who were showing up for his rallies into the Democratic Party, where you can be dead certain that no good will come of it. Okay? So part of the reason why you want to organize in a party like, for example, the Greens or any other party that is not controlled by the 1%. I mean, I can speak to, for example, the Greens basically use the rules that Bernie Sanders used, like not taking corporate PAC money and stuff like that. The idea is not just that you're winning elections, because that's very unlikely. Even if more people voted Green, that's not really entirely the issue. U.S. elections are fucked. The idea is that you then are organizing people in an organization which isn't corporate controlled. So you can engage in many different kinds of class struggle, which may include elections, but will also include many other things. So, but you need some kind of organizational basis for that. It can't just be random individuals trying to cooperate. Like, you actually have to come together in some sort of structure for that. So that's the point, is, again, it's what I was saying before about people criticizing and not getting involved. It's like if people had gotten involved, they might be aware of what I just said already, whereas I think a lot of people aren't. So that's the thing, is like, people trying to do the lesser evil thing, going for, oh, let's just vote for Democrats. You're literally building an organization, the Democratic Party, which is committed to the maintenance and expansion of U.S. empire and towards crushing proletarian power, while sort of co-opting certain allowed amounts of it, just, to keep up the veneer that they're some kind of worker-friendly party. We absolutely need to challenge that in every way. And yeah, I mean, once you have your organization, maybe running in some elections is useful in some cases, but whatever the case, once you're organized, and you can engage in whatever kind of struggle, and you're just never going to do that in the Democratic Party. So that's kind of more the point. All right. Eric J says, okay, I agree with you, Lamau. All right, fine. Let's see. Big Red Boy 1234. Same with the Gonzalo Shining Path stands. Pretty marginal. I guess this is in reference to Pol Pot. So it's like, it is what it is. I mean, if there needs to be some kind of a statement on this at some point, I'm just not seeing it in my life too much. So, excuse me. Health Revolt. Is housing as crucial for fighting the virus as vaccines? I read somewhere that China has been trying to house refugees to fight the spread of the virus. Should we be protesting for housing security during the pandemic? We should always be protesting for housing security. We should never not be protesting for housing security. Also, is it true that Biden can institute Medicare for all on the basis of an executive order alone? I don't know. I would doubt it, though. Where did you hear that specifically? I'm just curious. And I'm not questioning you. I'm just like, if somebody is saying that and it is either true or untrue, I'd be interested in maybe covering that. I wish we could make demands and take to the streets. Is it dumb to do so if you only know a few people willing to stand in the cold? Well, depends how you work it. So a few people being willing to stand in the cold may go out and do that and make contacts and then hold something bigger and hold some events and hold some movie screenings and get more people out and whatever, and then maybe build it and hold some larger event and or rally when the weather is nicer. So yeah, or there may be organizations out there that, you could lobby to do this if you get involved with them. So yeah, I guess as far as, organizing for housing security, I mean, the level of the homelessness crisis in this country is unspeakable. Yes, that absolutely needs to be on the front line of demands. People need housing in order to do anything else. Charmander, my one big crit of China, I'm skipping China today. What's my take on China? It's a large country in Asia, and that's about as much as I feel like talking about China today. So the same questions come up a lot, so... let's see. Charmander. skipping over. Health Revolt. Howie offered, yes, so this is a good point. Howie Hawkins offered to let Bernie run in his place after it was clear that the Dems wouldn't let him. I was very disappointed when he didn't. Due to, okay, that's a separate question. So, yeah, Howie Hawkins did offer to let Bernie Sanders run on the Green Party ticket, and Bernie didn't. But that's not real surprising, right? I mean, Bernie Sanders, my initial criticism of Bernie is that in the first run against Hillary Clinton, he should have, even Bernie style could have played nice, and he could have said, okay, we got screwed out of the nomination. They cheated during the thing, but here, go ahead, vote for Hillary. But here's what we're going to do. And this was in July, the time of the Democratic Party convention, when they were using the sound weapons to drown out the Bernie people at the convention and stuff like that. I mean, shameful stuff. Not a party that actually believes in democracy, much like their official opponents, the Republicans. But Bernie Sanders had huge opportunities right then to break away from the Democratic Party and either join the Greens or start a left Labor Party, which, that could have also grown significantly and could have kept up those demands and could have been kind of the party that Occupy refused to be back in the day, and that the Greens and other, I'll just say the Greens, because PSL, for example, is revolutionary, and the Greens, I don't think, hold that position necessarily. I'm sure that individual members do, but I don't think the party does. That it's that kind of platform that left parties in the United States have been putting out for a while. So, it would have gotten a lot of traction. And Bernie could have said, hey, we're not going to run anybody in 2016. So if people want to hold their nose and vote for Hillary, go for it. But we are going to build our party, and we're going to be back in 2018, and we're going to be back in 2020, and we're going to keep coming with Medicare for all as a demand. We're going to keep coming with housing justice. I mean, Bernie Sanders' campaign, I plan to do a video on it. It's extremely long. If you go through his website, all of the different policy things that they had. A lot of them, arguably didn't go far enough, and other parties were doing better. But it was there, I mean, it was way beyond anything the Democrats were doing. So, in hindsight, maybe it's best that Bernie Sanders wasn't at the head of this. At the same time, we're kind of back to square one in many ways. So, yeah. I think you weren't alone in being very disappointed when Bernie Sanders didn't do that, because we live in urgent, these are desperate times. It's an urgent situation, and something needs to be done. And Bernie was like, my good friend Joe, blah, blah, blah. I'm just going to go and, get behind Joe and hope for the best. Meanwhile, Bernie can't even get a fucking N95 mask mandate, let alone anything else. The media doesn't cover him anymore, etc. Bernie Sanders needs to come out and, if he's sincere in the slightest, needs to come out and say, look, my capitulation to the Democratic Party was a major mistake. Everyone who considers themselves left at this point should join the Greens or join some whatever group, etc. I mean, he needs to back off of this if he's at all sincere. And if Bernie kicks the bucket, he's up there in age, without ever saying this, then he was just a sheepdog. Sorry, but that's what he was doing, was he was sheepdogging for the Democrats. I don't think that old, you see clips of 1990 Bernie Sanders. He knew damn well that's why he was an independent. But, who knows what deals he made behind the scenes. So we just don't know. Bottom line, it was very, very, very deleterious to the movement. Not a good move there. So Health Revolt says, due to emergency authorization given to the president during the pandemic, due to it being an emergency. Oh, you're saying doing Medicare for all as an emergency type of order. Yeah, I don't know if that's possible. I'd be interested to read a write-up on it. Unelectable Airwaves. David Diane wrote an article called The Day One Agenda or similar that laid out a bunch of stuff Biden can supposedly do with executive orders. All right, here, I will make a note of that and look it up at some point. When I close my little notepad file, get that back out. All right, slow computer. Actually, it's not that slow. Just doing too many things. Eric, I know I saw the Bulls on parade at protests in Buffalo in 2020. I'd rather police not terrorize people at all, but Nazis aren't people. So, yeah, I mean, we need, like I was talking about before, we need to demilitarize and defund the police. And again, like, so understanding about Nazis, they are wannabe cops. They are right wing vigilantes that basically are kind of the irregulars, like more of a complement to the police than an entirely distinct phenomenon. So, more food for thought, I guess. Health Revolt. Look at our Way of the Burn recently is doing left-right unity now. All that revolutionary angst funneled into populism. Yeah, so is that where you originally saw S4A? So there's a Reddit sub called Way of the Burn. I actually got banned from that subreddit for criticizing, maybe it was Jimmy Dore. So yeah, the left-right unity thing now, it is, I think, the logical extension of that green libertarian alliance that I've been noticing since the early 2000s as like a problematic trend. Again, the left not getting involved more only made that more possible. So again, my point about people sitting back and criticizing, then these things happen and nobody's there to say no. Nobody's there to vote against it, whatever. So that's how that happens. So yeah, that Way of the Burn is doing left-right unity. I'm not surprised in the slightest because, I mean, I got kicked out of that sub for criticizing left-right unity, for sure. Health Revolt says, actually, no, that's not where they saw S4A. They saw me because because they were hate-watching everything about Richard Wolff, the Destiny debate, and hating Bosch. Okay. So yeah, see, I know that stuff has value, putting that up on that channel. I've really reached a point where doing those commentaries, I did the Russell Brand one for about 10 minutes. That was about all I could take. That's like a month's worth, maybe 2 months worth for me. I just can't do those commentaries so much because I just want to start screaming. It's, I mean, I feel like the sock dems are getting less. They didn't have that much to offer to begin with, and I feel like their content is lower quality now than ever. They just don't even know what to say to a lot of. They just don't have answers to a lot of the questions that the movement is facing. The movement that they're kind of adjacent to. I mean, I guess my thoughts on this. As I mentioned, it's kind of more of an audiobooks week for me than a current events week. I kind of go back and forth between these. The state of the left in the U.S. sucks. Let's be honest. I would love to see more people get out and do stuff because then there's actually good news to report on. But right now, a lot of the people involved, they can't tell the difference between a fascist movement and a socialist one. So, I don't know. So you have a movement where a significant chunk of people can't tell the difference, or like can't tell you why like libertarianism is a bad thing, or why you shouldn't work with them, or why right-wing populism, or people can tell you what's wrong with libertarians, and then be like right-wing populism is okay. I mean, just the cognitive dissonance. It's as if there's just mass insanity. It's just massive cognitive dissonance. Thoughts on Kyle Kalinske and Crystal Ball dating? Is that a fact? No comment. So anyway. Well, I've been going for about an hour and a half, and we're just starting, these regular streams at this point. Kim Jong Chil says, yeah, the whole Chapo crowd is the worst representation of real socialists. I really have never listened to them. I think I've listened to one or two, like literally one and maybe a half of one of their shows. I didn't hear anything like egregious in it. But what is people's complaints with them? I don't know them well enough to even be familiar with the arguments against them. Health Revolt adds, doesn't help that Vosh muddles the water with his libertarian socialism branding. Yeah, I mean, it doesn't help that Vosh exists, in my opinion. That guy just does more damage on a daily basis, not just to like politics, but just everything. Muro asks, "Isn't Chapo basically Sockdem?" Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. Uh, I don't know what they're about. Like I said, I listened to like one or two things. I couldn't. It was a bunch of guys bantering, and I didn't actually get a lot of substance out of it. So I couldn't really tell what their politics were. But anyway, I'm gonna, like I said, I've been going for about an hour and a half. I'm gonna put it out there. If anybody has last minute comments, put them there. Otherwise, I'll be streaming probably again on Saturday, and I plan to do these on Tuesdays and Saturdays for a while, at least until I get the affiliate status and can upload some videos. So, anyway, get your comments in now if you want to get an answer, and I'll start reading them. KR Class Struggle says, kinda unrelated, does class struggle occur outside or inside the state? I'm not sure exactly what you mean by that, but so the object of class struggle is for one class eventually to supplant the ruling class and to, like, for example, the struggle for socialism is the proletariat against the bourgeoisie. The proletariat is the ruled and the bourgeoisie is the ruling class. The bourgeoisie have their state, which is the, the state of society today. The aim of the proletariat eventually is to abolish the bourgeois state and to establish a proletarian state. So class struggle occurs all through society. I guess, are you trying to ask... I guess, can you just restate the question? I mean, as far as occurring outside or inside the state, if proletarians manage to attain positions within the bourgeois state, then then advocating proletarian interests within the bourgeois state is possible. How far you're going to get with that is another story. But anyway, I guess it depends on what you're referring to as class struggle. A. Tyler B. says, I personally like them, I guess meaning Chapo. Most people I come across just can't seem to distinguish between sarcasm and what to take seriously. Miro says, if I recall correctly, I remember hearing Matt Kreisman on with a couple of Means TV people talking about red fashion, a thing a few years ago. It's entirely possible. Karma Charmander, why did Marx think socialism could be done through elections in Western countries? So I think that one of Marx's weakest points was probably his theories about the United States. And that's kind of like top to bottom. It seems to me that Marx just did not have a good handle on the United States. Whether it was talking about what was being done in Mexico, or there's a lot I think Marx got wrong. And one of them is that he thought that it might be possible for there to be, like a peaceful transition to social. I mean, as socialists, we always want as peaceful a transition as possible to socialism. The problem is that the bourgeoisie tends to get really violent when you take back the stuff that we made but they think belongs to them. Marx, in the 1840s, thought the United States might be an example of a place where there could be a relatively peaceful transition to socialism. And of course, he was completely wrong. And I think he just didn't have a good handle on the United States is probably the simplest answer to that. I mean, it's something that as we do more of the readings and I'm actually sitting there reading through the stuff, if I can point out examples of that, I probably will when we're doing the audiobooks. But we went through this when I did the video criticizing Vosh for saying like Marx, Engels, Lenin, and Mao want you to vote for Joe Biden. That's like a 3-hour video, and we went through this at the time because Vosh was trying to cherry pick quotes from Marx and Engels about how the United States could have a transition to socialism just through elections and things like that. So I think Marx was just really dramatically underestimating how reactionary the U.S. ruling class was going to be. Obviously, a lot of things happened between the time when Marx was writing that and then when the socialist movement in the United States actually got big. We're talking about like a 50-year gap. A lot of things changed. So I don't know that he always had the best grasp on it. The United States conditions, particularly in the first place. I mean, he knew Germany, he knew France, he knew England, he knew places that he had more familiarity with and that he had more contacts in. And so anyway, that's kind of my answer on that. And I know that I talked about this more in that video, the one with Vosh with the Democrat dunce cap in the thumbnail. Kim Jong chills. I just hate the whole Brooklyn millionaire quote socialist cokehead shit. Hear, hear, amen. But yeah, Vosh has to be CIA. Any rational Marxist would have to work hard at coming to the fucked up conclusions he comes to. Yeah, I mean, I have no documentation to that effect, but also you couldn't come up with much more fucked up conclusions if you fucking tried. Although, Infracell is probably giving him a run for his money. Like, like the one, I don't think I did this in a video, because I was pretty much done doing videos about Infracell at the point where he was like, we already live in socialism. Like, okay, pretty sure we don't, but he had another tweet that was like examples of real world socialism. And it was things that were not even slightly socialist. And one of them included the Qing dynasty, which was the last dynasty in China. That when the Qing dynasty came down, it like led to the communist movement emerging. Like you couldn't come up with much of a worse take. So who even knows? Who even knows? Tanky Hoosier says, a rich, quote, socialist can't speak to my realities. I hate grifters. Yeah, I mean, if you don't actually know what it's like to be a working person, it's pretty hard to try to understand and advance proletarian demands and interests. So and that's not to say it's impossible, but probably a lot harder. Kim Jong, and as far as grifters, yeah, the amount of money flying around in this whole, quote, socialist movement that is barely socialist. Pretty sad. Kim Jong chills, and this may be the final comment. I can't even imagine how people see Kyle Kulinski as a rational person still. He's up and close with watching the failure of neoliberal bourgeois politics and still thinks we should just vote our way to success. Yeah, just, elect better Democrats. That's Kyle's motto. Elect better Democrats. That's all these people. Jordan Chariton, elect better Democrats. I don't know what more these people need to see to understand that's not going to work. It's not going to work. The U.S. is in this kind of deadlock currently. The Democrats don't want to work with the left. Their donors, who also control the Republicans, are telling them, keep the fight going between you and the Republicans. They're trying to just sustain the current situation indefinitely. However, we know that the development of capitalism is a moving target. You can't sustain these politics indefinitely. It's moving rightward, and eventually it's going to snap at some point. We're just going to get full-on fascism. But I guess, the bourgeoisie is trying to protect that transition to fascism without any interruptions, which, would be the Democrats listening at all to the left, and that includes the, quote, progressive Democrats. They don't want you in their party, except as some kind of progressive cover to fool people and sheepdog. They're not sincere about following any kind of progressive demands. If watching the Bernie 2016 and 2020 candidacies did not teach you that, then you have a real problem. Like you're deeply in denial. And Kyle Kulinski's the leader of the pack on that front. But Kyle, it's like, I think Kyle set out to be a cross between Bill Maher and Cenk Uygur, and he's living up to it. And I don't know, he's a tool. What else can I say? Follow-up from Kim Jong Chills. He's been doing it for years, too. You would think just at a certain point. Sorry about blowing up the chat. No problem. No, that's a good point. Kyle Kulinski, I mean, his thing's a business. He's got like 1 million subscribers, and they like being told that you can change the Democratic Party. Unfortunately, it's a lie. You can't change the Democratic Party. You can't. And he'll even like say that sometimes, but then still come out against getting involved with the Green Party or whatever. The Green Party, again, just being the most obvious large party, like left party with some infrastructure. That would be the obvious choice for people to get started. Okay? You don't have to be like a Marxist, like to join PSL or CPUSA or something. The Green Parties don't. The Green Party does not demand any of that. It's just kind of a mass party that is to the left of the Democrats. That would be the obvious place. Kyle Kulinski will go on all day long about how that's pointless, but somehow working with the Democrats isn't. It's fucking insane. All right. Last comment, Eric KJ9. Are socialist LARPers like Haas bad overall? He's not a socialist. He has not demonstrated any knowledge of socialism whatsoever. So he wants to elect better Dems too. Yeah, see, I don't even know. And honestly, just, it's honestly sad that people like that can find an audience. But I was an audience member pulled left by him, so left that I out-lefted him. In other words, you saw through the obvious contradictions and nonsense he was putting out. Am I the exception, and everybody else just gets lulled into thinking that that is a real movement? Are there others like you? Sorry for your long, convoluted questions. No, that's fine, and that's not really convoluted. So you're saying, like, you somehow got into the infracell audience, and, you eventually, like, came to actually socialist positions which were not being expressed on the show, and you sort of moved on from it. No, people move on from being in the audience of a certain, political thing all the time. As you listen to and evaluate what's being said, you will find you either agree or disagree, and then you move on, But no, I mean, what that guy puts out is like a, just long threads of babbling nonsense. You're not crazy at all, or the exception for like figuring out that it's total bullshit. I think there is value to it because it can help others. Value to what? I mean, I think there's value to your questions. I don't think there's value to infracell is what I'm trying to say. Charmander says, I like Jackson Hinkle at the start. He was pretty good before he grifted. He was very pro-vax and was reading Lenin on stream. So yeah, here's the thing. There will be like litmus test issues where people either have good analysis or they don't, and they will either correct or not correct, and this is how you evaluate, the positions of pundits. But at the end of the day, they're just pundits, I mean, I'm somebody who wanted to read more Marx and Engels and Lenin and everything, and I started a channel, and I just started trying to apply it to some current events commentary so that people would have an alternative, another alternative at least. I know there are other channels doing this kind of thing. Another alternative to the Kyle Kulinskis and the Humanist Reports, and that's it. I never said I was going to have perfect takes on everything, but I am actually trying to learn, and I am actually open-minded in terms of, having some kind of dialogue with good faith people. Yeah, as far as the earlier comment, why don't I debate these people? I made a couple of videos tearing certain asinine things to shreds, and I think that that's as far as it needs to go. Somebody where you have some sort of, genuinely different idea about something, but both are arguably valid, that's an exception. But it's got to be arguably valid for, to even want to enter into that conversation. All right, well, we're going to end it there. Thanks to everybody for listening. Thanks to everybody who came in and did comments, except for the troll. And, here's a better note to end on. So Kim Jong-chil says, honestly, the best things you can do is join an org and read. You can't just take snippets. Marxists need to know their positions in and out. Best of luck. So yeah, we'll end with that. The more you read, and this is why we do audiobooks on the channel, is so the audience, the masses, okay, or at least the more class conscious, the vanguard, actually knows what the fuck we're talking about. Therefore, when some pundit pops up and claims to be, the voice of the people, you can actually evaluate them and see whether they're bullshitting you or not. And too many of these people are absolutely full of shit. Anyway, with that, heading out. Plan to stream again on Saturday, 5 Eastern, 2 Pacific. So find your time zone within that. And yeah, later.